We're going to kick it off because we have a lot to present today. I'm going to start. My name is Annie Mazes. I handle adult publishing at Workman Publishing. My first slide is the Stickler's Guide to Science. Educator, engineer, and designer of the Oregon Trail, so be still my 10-year-old heart, R. Philip Bouchard takes a closer look at 13 pervasive scientific untruths and humorously and accessibly shares the real science behind them. Next, we have Volunteers. It's a provocative, impassioned memoir. Jared Alexander reveals what it's like to be raised on war, vividly recreating the masculine fantasies of American heroism and patriotism that animated his childhood, and at the same time, brilliantly dismantling those myths for readers of Jarhead or the Things They Carried. Next, we have Honor by best-selling author and library favorite Thridi Umrigar. It's the moving story of two Indian women and the courage they inspire in each other. For fans of Etaf Rum's A Woman Is No Man, you will be gripped by this heartbreaking and perceptive story of Meena and Smita, two women trying to navigate how to live in a country where reprehensible things continue to happen, a country that they want more than anything to love and claim as their own. Oh, I'm so glad that you liked Honor, Beth. Next up, we have The Beholden. It's the latest novel by critically acclaimed author Cassandra Rose Clark. Two noblewomen and a pirate who once accompanied them to seek a bargain with a goddess find themselves at the center of a conflict between the immortal being Decay and the emperor of their land, as the goddess calls on them to repay their debt by seeking out this elusive god before the world crumbles around them. Next, we have Perpetual West. Spanning from Virginia to Texas to Mexico, Misha Marin's thrilling follow-up to Sugar Run takes us from missionaries to wrestling matches to a luxurious cartel compound and deep inside the psychic choices that shape our identities. Next is Welcome to the Grief Club, a place where one human has experienced a terrible loss, Janine Kuo, and she is welcoming other humans in their grieving time. It's not an instructional manual or a step-by-step playbook or a memoir. It's a fresh, empathetic approach to all of the surprising, confusing, brutal, funny, and bizarre parts of grief. Next up is Clean Air. It's a climate apocalypse has come and gone, and in the end, it was the trees and the pollen that did us in. The world has become overgrown, and in the decades since, humanity has rebuilt, and everyone lives under these airtight domes, unable to go outside. The peace of a town is shattered when a serial killer starts slashing through the domes, exposing people to this deadly pollen. This is definitely for readers of The Need, Leftovers, and Fever Dream. Next up, we have Kalina, the Soothsayer. Kalina's family has a gift for generations, the ability to see and predict the future. Ultimately, Kalina did not get so lucky. And for years, she supported her aging family on the strength of her wits, using informants and trickery to fake prophecies and scrounge a living. But when on the strength of her reputation, she is kidnapped to protect a false king, she must figure out a way to save herself and her family without magic. This is the Goblin Emperor meets Uprooted with a voice like Gideon the Ninth. Next up, we have Off the Edge. Anna Merlin, author of Republic of Lies, summed this book up perfectly, so I'm just going to quote her. It's an inquisitive, empathetic, deeply reported, and disturbingly funny tour through the farthest reaches of the most fringe possible conspiracy community, Flat Earthers. Fat Girls Hiking is up next. Fat Girls Hiking is a fat activism, body liberation, and outdoor community founded by Summer Michaud Skog with the goal of creating a space where fat and marginalized folks can come together to create safer spaces in the outdoors. In this eponymous book, Summer has the same goal: equal parts, empowering and practical. Fat Girls Hiking adds an important voice to the conversation about diversity in the outdoors, raising the visibility of hikers who have long been marginalized. That's my mother-in-law. Linked is my last book, a definitive guide to maximizing LinkedIn and navigating the changing hiring landscape, written by two hiring gurus, both former LinkedIn marketing heads, with invaluable insider perspective. And that is it for me. Thank you so much for your time.
That was great, Annie. Hi, everyone. A huge thank you to Annie for gathering us all here. We're so grateful. I'm Erica Melnichuk, and I'm excited to be buzzing to you today for Penguin Random House Library Marketing. You can like, follow, subscribe, and share with us all across social media using the @PRH Library handle. And you can always find us at penguinrandomhouselibrary.com for the latest in our book-related news and resources. This is our YouTube slide. Before I dive into the titles I've selected for you today, I want to direct your attention to our YouTube channel at PRH Library, where we've just uploaded our latest 3 and 3 staff pick videos. We have so many titles that we're excited to share with you from our spring 2022 lists, so please check them out. And now on to the books. In this moving debut, 2 estranged siblings must set aside their differences to deal with their mother's death and her hidden past, a journey of discovery that takes them from the Caribbean to London to California and ends with her famous Black Cake. Deeply evocative and beautifully written, Black Cake is an extraordinary journey through the life of a family changed forever by the choices of its matriarch. Inspired by her own mother's Black Cake recipe and her experiences as the first-generation daughter of Caribbean immigrants living in the US and Europe, Wilkerson is able to bring extraordinary life to her beautiful ensemble cast of characters that contains a successful scientist, a lost woman, a desperate father, a famous long-distance swimmer, and a mother with untold secrets that readers will never forget. And on to the verifiers. This next debut novel follows Claudia Lynn as she verifies people's online lives and lies for a referrals-only online dating detective agency in New York City, until a client with an unusual request goes missing. Claudia is used to disregarding her fractious family's model minority expectations. She has no interest in finding either a conventional career or a nice Chinese boy. She's also used to keeping secrets from them, such as the fact that she prefers girls. Claudia's narration is in classic mystery tradition, full of pitch-perfect comedic observations. She's a less world-weary Philip Marlowe crossed with a hilarious best friend you wish you had. Author Jane Peck's background in law and tech come into play in this smart, technologically savvy mystery that explores the ways corporations monitor and analyze our every move and how we let them do it. And without giving too much away, the slow burn emergence of Claudia's love interest is one of the novel's secret delights. On my next slide, Time as a Mother is the highly anticipated collection of poems from the award-winning writer Ocean Vuong. In this deeply intimate second poetry collection, Ocean Vuong searches for life among the aftershocks of his mother's death, embodying the paradox of sitting within grief while being determined to survive beyond it. Shifting through memory and in concert with the themes of his best-selling debut novel, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, Vuong contends with personal loss, the meaning of family, and the cost of being the product of an American war in America. On to my last title for you today, Lift Every Voice presents interviews with the oldest generation of Black Americans about their lives, their experiences, and the wisdom that can carry all of us to a better future. The insightful interviews were conducted by a brilliant team of rising Black journalists, many from historically Black colleges and universities, and the portraits were shot by a talented group of next generation Black photographers. The 50 fascinating individuals featured, civil rights activists, hometown heroes, celebrities, and many others include Faye Waddleton, 77, reproductive rights activist and the first African-American and youngest president of Planned Parenthood; Patti LaBelle, 77, singer, songwriter, celebrity; Fred Gray, 89, civil rights lawyer who represented Rosa Parks; and Clarice Freeman, 100 years old, educator and community leader in Houston, Texas. With a foreword by Oprah Winfrey and introduction by Nicole Hannah-Jones, this book is both a testament to the strength of the stories behind them and a triumphant beginning for a new generation of journalists. And onto my final slide for you. Thank you for listening. Please check out today's titles using this tiny URL or the great Edelweiss collection that we're sharing with you in the comments box. That includes everybody's titles for you today. It's a fantastic resource, and I'll be sure to look out for your eGalley requests. Happy reading, everybody.
Thank you, Erica. Hello to all. I am Chris Vicari of Sterling. Welcome to our new titles preview on this October day, one where we announce that we will begin to publish a curated list of fiction in March 22, starting with, next slide, please, the Wolf Den by Elodie Harper. It is historical fiction, paperback original, and earlier this year, #1 London Times bestseller. The Wolf Den is the name of a notorious brothel in Pompeii. One woman in this brothel is named Amara, once the beloved daughter of a doctor in Greece, until her father's death plunged her mother into poverty and led her to being sold by her mother into this wolf den in Pompeii. Conditions there forced her to hide her true self, but she is smart, resourceful, her spirit is never broken, and she's determined to fight for her freedom, whatever it takes. From start to finish, it is emotional and unflinching, but also resilient, engrossing, and a story of finding love and strength in one another. Some readers said perfect for fans of Madeline Miller's Circe. Please request from us on NetGalley or Edelweiss and your wish will be granted. I do hope you can find the time, as there will be a lot of visibility on this title in the marketplace. Next slide, please, is Dirtbag Astrology. With millions of people looking for a higher power to make sense of today's world, Dirtbag Astrology presents a different side of astrology as the ultimate defense that if you understand it, can help you vanquish rivals, get you that one-night stand you crave, and dismantle psychic monsters. So aside from me learning that the John Cusack character in Say Anything is a total Leo moon, the author also gave me a good understanding of the basics of astrology, the background about sun signs, how our moon sign leads us to our most problematic habits, all before digging into the double-edged power of all 12 signs. What you do with the information here is up to you. But this book is perfect for readers who are tired of overly earnest astrology. Author Alberto Toribio runs the @Gnarly Astrology account on Instagram. Hundreds of thousands of followers. Next slide, please. Financial first aid. The financial hardships all over the country, whether unemployment, rent problems, or hurricane, wildfire damages, all contribute to the emotional side of money, fear and shame of spending, fear of being broke, or even for those that do invest, jumping on the bandwagon, so to speak, whether too soon or too late. We should be striving for a healthier relationship with money. And I think Alyssa Davies helps us get on that road to being a healthy money manager. She's the founder of the blog Mixed Up Money. She's here for the millennial generation and others to help us navigate these ups and downs without passing judgment on your recent or current faux pas. I like to think of Alyssa as Jane Chatsky for a new generation, or even Jane Chatsky for your generation. Light on financial jargon and conversational with charming illustrations. It offers rainy day planning for every day, and a cover will come soon. Next slide, please. Mushroom magic. Question for everyone. Why is everyone so obsessed with mushrooms right now? Well, we know they're packed with nutrients. We know they have a low environmental impact, but they also serve as a signifier of the mystery of the forest and an emblem of cottagecore dreams. Next slide, please. Our book, Mushroom Magic, has the feel for the fungi, with first candid profiles of 22 well-known mushrooms with their biology and energetic properties. Next slide will show a global collection of mushroom myths and fables. Next slide, lastly, a little taste of spells and rituals that you can perform with common mushrooms, plus some yummy meals that hubba hubba can improve your love life, supercharge your good fortune, or even cast a hex. Next slide, please. Author Sean Engel has over 100,000 followers on social media under the handle Witchy Wisdoms. And thanks to Sean, the days of underappreciation of friendly fungi will soon be behind us. Next slide for one more look at that jacket. And then the next slide will show Vogue Knitting Knit Shawls, 25 patterns for a range of skill levels using world-famous Noro yarns, which spin into unique, colorful patterns that self-stripe. Oh yes, I said self-stripe. So you can create a feast for the eyes and body. Next slide will show you some of these shawls. Of course, shawls are one of the hottest hitting projects today, maybe because they're large projects and they don't require precise fit for successful execution, making them satisfying to a world of knitters. Here's another slide as well. Look at those. Join the hashtag Shawl Nation, my friends. And then next slide is a look at our new classics. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Lainey. I had to show you these new upcoming line of sterling signature classics with the exceptional art from artist Malika Favre. Should you be looking to replace the classics you currently have with a more striking look, these will stand out for years to come. 6 in the first batch in early 22, including The Sun Also Rises, for anyone still hungover from the Ken Burns documentary on Hemingway. Those are the books. Next slide shows that's the way it is on Wednesday, October 27th. If you need to reach out, Chris and Andrea are at your service. Thank you for your time today. And here's our next speaker.
Laney, do we have Chronicle here? I do not think so. So we're gonna skip.
We do. I am
we
here.
do. Oh, hi!
Hi.
Yay!
I was
so
disguised
glad.
as a guest.
I'm so glad. Come on
I
in.
am here. Hello. Hi. Thanks, Chris. I was watching I got so wrapped up in the knitting. I got distracted. Okay, here I am. Hello. I am Annalisa Sandstrom from Chronicle Books. Please come connect with us via Instagram, Twitter, NetGalley, Edelweiss, or wherever good books are found. Or you can just email me. And today I'm sharing with you 4 very different forthcoming titles. They live pretty far away from one another on the shelves, but right now they're next to each other. So here we are with our first title, which is The Art of Alice and Martin Provenson. It's the first ever monograph on this husband and wife illustration team who over the course of 7 decades, they created more than 40 children's books. Next slide, please. And there's an interview with their daughter, Karen Provenson Mitchell, and it illuminates their life and career and includes many personal photographs, quotes, speeches, and memorabilia from their archive. Next slide. It also includes hundreds of their well-known illustrations, as well as many never-before-seen paintings, drawings, and exquisite sketches from their travels around the world. Next slide, please. The text includes their Caldecott Medal acceptance speech from 1984 when they won for the glorious flight across the channel with Louis Blériot. Next slide, please. There are original paintings from their beloved classics such as A Child's Garden of Verses, The Iliad and the Odyssey, Myths and Legends, and many others are beautifully reproduced and included here. Next slide, please. The Provenson's colorful, inimitable artwork is a treasure trove that has influenced generations of children, designers, illustrators, historians, and librarians. Coming January 11th to a library wholesaler near you. Next slide, please. Totally beautiful eye candy, right? Okay. First of all, I apologize for the tiny print on these slides. If you have your microscope out, please feel free to read the text. Otherwise, it is, here we are with Ceramics Bible Revised Edition. So it is a truth universally acknowledged that a library with books on ceramics contains the previous edition of this title. It has an orange cover and published in August 2011. So surprise, here's the revised edition by Louisa Taylor. Next slide, please. This revised edition features new techniques, terms, images, as well as the tried and true step-by-step instruction and comprehensiveness that students, instructors, artists, and collectors are looking for. Next slide. This updates a quarter of the original content while keeping the visually rich format and the straightforward instruction tools that makers and artists are looking for. The changes include content on 3D clay printing, and profiles on new artists. Coming January 4th to a 700 section. Next slide, please. Okay, we have ARCs available for this gem of a book from our imprint Chronicle Prism. In The Sunny Nihilist, a declaration of the pleasure of pointlessness, Wendy Seifert re-examines the meaning of worth, value, time, happiness, success, and connection, no small feat, and guides us towards the alternative path of pointless pleasure. Her premise is that when you let go of the idea that everything must have purpose, you'll find relief from stress, exhaustion, and anxiety. Seifert writes that in recent years, the search for meaning has been upgraded from a private pursuit to a very marketable action. Her writing is hilarious. She says, today the promise of and search for meaning has been grafted into almost every part of our lives. From, you might have a multinational confectionery company telling you that splitting a slab of chocolate is a meaningful act of multi-generational community engagement, or an economically priced body wash that's moisturizing and is a radical representation of body positivity. It's sharp, funny commentary. We have ARCs available. Email me for one. Next slide, please. Here we have Asian Girls Are Going Places, How to Navigate the World as an Asian Woman Today by Michelle Law is the 3rd book in the Girls Guide to the World series from Australian publisher Hardy Grant. Next slide, please. It covers solo travel, family travel, where to celebrate Lunar New Year, where to find good Asian food abroad, romance and relationships, and topics on safety and sustainability. Peppered throughout are stunning illustrations by Hong Kong artist Joy Leong Kai-yin. Next slide, please. Law's writing is both hilarious and informative. It will be a great addition to your travel section. Next slide. Thank you for your time and attention and for your service. Please do get in touch if you'd like to receive review copies or if you just want to talk about books. Thank you all.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Casterly. I'm with Blackstone Publishing, and thank you for taking the time today to hear about our top books. First, we have Ruby Fruit Jungle by Rita Mae Brown. Originally published in 1973, this book is considered a classic of LGBT literature. So we're very excited to make it more widely available in audio. This literary milestone continues to resonate with its message about being true to yourself and against the odds, living happily ever after. This new audio version will be read by the actress and voice artist Anna Paquin. She has been a longtime supporter of LGBT issues, so she's really a great fit for reading this, and we're very excited to have her on board. And this one is releasing in audio January 25th. Next, we have Star Talk by Neil deGrasse Tyson. For decades, beloved astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson has interpreted science with a combination of brain power and charm that resonates with fans everywhere. This pioneering, provocative book brings together the best of his beloved podcast and television show, which are also called Star Talk, and are devoted to solving the most confounding mysteries of Earth, space, and what it means to be human. Neil will be reading the introduction and possibly other sections of this, so that is really great. He's a great reader, and that will add a lot to the audio experience for this one. And it's releasing in audio March 29th. Next is Edgewater Road by Shelley Shepherd Gray. This is the first in a new series from the New York Times bestselling author. Edgewater Road invites us into a world of family mysteries, small town secrets, and perhaps a little romance along the way. So readers of the romance genre are very familiar with Shelley Shepherd Gray. She's also very much a library favorite, and we do have some library events being planned, COVID permitting, so stay tuned for that. And this will be available in print, ebook, and audio March 1st. Next, we have Hotel Portofino by J.P. O'Connell. This is my very favorite from the titles that we're presenting today. It's a really wonderful historical novel. It's a family drama. It's getting a lot of comparisons to Downton Abbey, but it's got a beautiful Italian Riviera setting. It's already in production as a 6-episode TV series to be distributed by PBS in the middle of 2022. I saw an early trailer for that. It looks fantastic. So there's just a lot of buzz around the book already because of the great writing in the book and because of that show coming up. And it's going to be available in print, ebook, and audio January 18th. Next, we have Pignon Scorpion and the Barbershop Detectives by Rick Bleiweiss. If you love Sherlock Holmes and Hercule Poirot, you must meet Pignon Scorpion. This quirky new detective and ensemble cast of characters set against the backdrop of small-town England in the 1910s will feel both comfortingly familiar and thrillingly new. This one is getting great early reviews. New York Times bestselling author Heather Graham said Pignon Scorpion and the Barbershop Detectives has quirky, wonderful characters and all the elements of a great and fun detective story. I totally loved reading this novel. It was a publisher's weekly pick of mystery debuts. It also just won the Pacific Northwest Booksellers Association Buzz Books Award. And it will be available in print, ebook, and audio February 8th. And there already is a book 2 in the works. So this is the beginning of a great new series. Finally, we have The Ursulina by Brian Freeman. This is the gripping follow-up to the Edgar Award nominated mystery, The Deep, Deep Snow. Brian is renowned for his storytelling. Michael Connolly said, this guy can tell a story. Nelson DeMille said Brian Freeman is quite simply a first-rate storyteller. This book holds true to that promise, and it will be available in print and ebook February 1st. And our last slide has contact information. So if you would like more information or galleys, please feel free to reach out to us.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I am Amanda Roundtree with Macmillan, and this slide has all the various ways you can get in touch with us. We love hearing from you, so please feel free to reach out with any questions. On the next slide, you can see how to get our e-galleys. The instructions can also be found on our website. Next slide. If you love genre fiction or are interested in just trying something new, you should definitely check out Genre for All on our website for exclusive content spotlighting sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and romance. And now on to the books. First up is Unmasked, My Life Solving America's Cold Cases by Paul Holes. This is a memoir of investigating America's toughest cold cases and the rewards and toll of a life solving crime from the detective who found the Golden State Killer. Paul has a large following thanks to his hit podcast, The Murder Squad, which gets 1.5 million downloads per episodes, plus TV show The DNA of Murder with Paul Holes and appearances on the HBO adaptation of I'll Be Gone in the Dark. His fan base is so devoted that they gave him his own hashtag #HotForHoles. And plus he frequently appears on the My Favorite Murder podcast and has close ties to the Murderino world and its fans. Paul's star continues to rise with forthcoming TV and media news soon to be announced. Next is Four Treasures of the Sky by Jenny Tingwei Zhang. This is a debut set against the backdrop of the Chinese Exclusion Act about a Chinese girl fighting to claim her place in the 1880s American West. It is for fans of homegoing because it is a powerful, sweeping historical novel about family and the forces that shape us. It is for fans of Anna North's Outlawed because it offers a reimagining of the American Western genre and adventure love story, showcasing new voices and untold stories. And it's for fans of Jacqueline Woodson's Red at the Bone because it is a classic coming-of-age tale intertwined with class, race, family history, and status. Next up is Sleepwalk by Dan Schoen. This is a high-speed and darkly comic road trip told through a near-future America with a big-hearted mercenary. Think of this as Fargo meets Stephen King meets Station 11. Next is Spear by Nicola Griffith. This is an Arthurian fantasy reimagined where the woman becomes a knight. This is in the same vein as smash successes by Madeline Miller, such as Circe and Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. Next, this is Under Lock and Skeleton Key by Gigi Pandian. This is the first in a new series from the Agatha, Anthony, Lefty, and Danger award-winning author. A woman is dragged back into working for her father's company that specializes in creating hidden spaces in private homes when a body is discovered inside a wall that's supposed to be sealed for decades. So come for the sliding bookshelves, stay for the mouth-watering descriptions of home-cooked Indian food and an ode to classic locked room mysteries that will leave readers enchanted. And my last title is A Tiny Upward Shove by debut author Melissa Chadbourne. This book has already received 16 author blurbs, so there's a lot of excitement generating. It is about a young woman named Marina who is dead and transformed into a mythical creature. She must now kill or die because she was murdered by a serial killer and now has unfinished business. This is a queer coming-of-age story inspired by Filipino folklore. Chadbourne herself is Asian American and is imbued with magic. It's also about the throwaways and the forgotten members of society, as Chadbourne was also in the foster care system. And next up, just a recap of everywhere you can find us. Please reach out if you have any questions. And thank you so much for listening today. Over to you, Sourcebooks.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I am Margaret Coffey, Director of Sales for Schools and Libraries for Sourcebooks, and I'm in New York today, which is very nice because I haven't been in the office for about 2 years. Next slide. I just want to tell you very quickly about some of my favorite upcoming titles. Please visit our website for discussion guides, newsletters, sign up, visit Edelweiss and NetGalley for our galleys. And next slide, and next slide. And starting with our Poison Pen mystery line and one of my absolute favorites on the list, The Department of Rare Books and Special Collections is a stunning debut mystery written by an academic librarian that pulls readers deep into dusty basement archives stacked with priceless manuscripts and reveals the dark edge of obsession running through the most devoted bookworms. Liesl Weiss has been mostly happy working in the rare books department of a large university, managing details and working behind the scenes to make the head of the department look good. But when her boss has a stroke and she's left to run things, she discovers that the library's most prized manuscript is missing. Liesl tries to sound the alarm and inform the police about the missing book, but is told repeatedly to keep quiet, keep the doors open, and let donors happy. But then a librarian goes missing as well. Liesl must investigate both disappearances, spooling her colleagues' past like the threads of a rare book binding, as it becomes clear that someone in the department must be responsible for the theft. Next slide. And next slide. A strikingly original novel in the vein of Daisy Jones and the Six meets Riley Sager. True crime story twists together transcripts, emails, and documents into an investigation of a missing college girl. The book also weaves in the mysteries of how the narrator, Joseph Knox, came to be in possession of these files and what fate befell the original author. Written by a former Waterstones crime bookseller, this is one twisty little book. I read it on my laptop and I literally had to keep checking to make sure it was really a novel because the writing is so authentic. Next book, next slide. Hidden Genius is the next novel from New York Times bestselling powerhouse Marie Benedict, which shines a light on Rosalind Franklin, who died to make a world-changing scientific discovery of our very DNA. A woman whose thinking was suppressed by the men around her, but whose relentless drive gave us profound knowledge of humankind. Next slide. Must Love Books by debut author and publishing insider Shauna Robinson follows the perils of a 20-something editorial assistant at an old school publisher. When Nora landed an editorial position at Parsons Press, it was her first step towards the dream job. But after 5 years of lunch orders, finicky authors, and per my last emails, Nora has come to one grand conclusion: dream jobs do not exist. While pondering her next step, Nora learns that Parsons is cutting her already unlivable salary. Unable to afford her rent, Nora decides to moonlight for a rival publisher and must decide where her loyalties lie when a best-selling author inadvertently gives her secret away. Next slide. And the next slide after that. Canadian-born writer Eliza Reid never expected to live in Iceland at all, much less become its first lady. She met her Icelandic husband at university in the UK and ultimately moved to Iceland. Eliza's new position granted her remarkable insight into the roles of Icelandic women in business, politics, the home, and more. Eliza offers an uplifting examination of Iceland's reputation, one of the best places in the world to be a woman. Secrets of the Språkar explores lessons we can all learn from the Språkar, or outstanding women, of our Nordic neighbors as we strive for gender equality. Next slide. And next slide. And finally, 2 hot romance books with ties to Greek mythology. King of Battle and Blood by librarian and bestselling author Scarlett St. Clair. And next slide. And next slide. And Electric Idol, the companion to Katie Roberts' Neon Gods, our best-selling CASA title of all time. And for my last slide, please visit our website to look at our other fabulous upcoming titles. Thank you so much for listening. Vote for Library Reads and have a great day. And on to Lynette.
Thanks, Margaret. Hi guys, I am Lynette, the library marketer for Harlequin Trade Publishing. I am excited to tell you about our biggest winter titles, starting with, next slide please, Don't Cry For Me by Daniel Black. This is an important book. In a way, Don't Cry For Me is the author's imagining of a reconciliation with his father that sadly didn't happen because of his father's illness. What results is an epistolary novel about a Black father who makes amends with his gay son through letters written on his deathbed. The novel is raw, it's by turns funny and heartbreaking. It's a story of generational trauma and empathy and forgiveness. Author LaRue Lewis McCoy says of the novel, for anyone who cares about Black men, gender, sexuality, and healing, this book is a balm. Next slide, please. The Good Son. Jacqueline Michard needs little introduction. And once again, she has come out with another solid book club pick. It's about a woman whose 21-year-old son was just released from prison after he was convicted of killing the love of his life. It's a crime he confessed to, and remains anguished over, even though he doesn't remember anything about that night because he was strung out on drugs at the time. So you have a community that's torn, obviously families that are devastated. There's an underlying mystery, but ultimately this is a story of a mother who's navigating conflicted feelings as she welcomes her only child back into her home. Christina Baker Klein calls The Good Son quietly devastating. Next slide, please. Sister Stardust. Jane Green is a known quantity in women's fiction, but we're excited to be publishing her breakout novel. A small town English girl named Claire has big dreams and falls into the it crowd of the swinging 60s. And when I say the it crowd, we're talking British rock stars and designers and models. And holding court at the center of it all is the charismatic Talita Getty, under whose spell everyone falls, including Claire herself. Talita Getty, pictured here, was a real life fixture in the 60s scene until her untimely death. This is her story as imagined by Jane Green. Next slide. Light Years from Home. Mike Chen's a rising star, contributing to little projects such as the recent Star Wars anthologies. In these parts, however, he is beloved for what reviewers affectionately call his sci-fi with feelings. In Light Years from Home, Jacob Shao reappears after having been missing for 15 years and has possibly brought an intergalactic war with him. Except his sisters Cass and Evie aren't sure if they believe him. The thing is, all the way up through college, Jake was sort of a stoner and a deadbeat. And for him to just take off without a word wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility. So things like alien abduction and then coming back as some sort of space hero, now racing against the clock to save the universe, not so much, or so they think. This is a story of lots of family dysfunction, but with aliens. Next book. Savvy Sheldon Feels Good as Hell by Taj McCoy. Savvy is a young woman living in LA. She's a rising star in everything but love. She has just decided to get back at her terrible ex-boyfriend by cultivating a revenge body. Instead, what she finds is strength, the importance of self-care, and new romance with the devastatingly handsome contractor who is renovating her kitchen. There's food, there's fashion, there's steamy romance. This book was like comfort food for my soul. Next book. An Honest Lie. I know a lot of librarians have been waiting for this one. From Taryn Fisher, the author of The Wives and the Wrong Family, comes a thriller about a girl's weekend in Vegas gone horribly, horribly wrong. And that's all I'll say about that. Next book. Finally, Righteous Troublemakers. From the Reverend Al Sharpton comes Untold Stories of the Social Justice Movement in America. The Rev, as we call him, of course, has a unique perspective on US history. He uses that perspective to shed light on the amazing stories of little-known people doing extraordinary work throughout history to fight for justice and change. Next slide, please. And that's it for me. Check out all these books on NetGalley and Edelweiss, and please reach out if you have any questions. And now on to Lainey Mays.
Hello, it's so nice to see everybody. Thanks, Lynette. So just a couple of intro slides. I'm happy to be here with you guys. Everything's on librarylovefest.com. We do door-to-door every Tuesday. Today, we're doing a special one on Wednesday, so join us right after this. And we do author events, so let us know. All of it's on librarylovefest.com. Our podcast, we've been doing really great Library Reads episodes. I hope you check it out. And first is Bright Burning Things by Lisa Harding. So absolutely love this book and this author. It follows Sonia, who is a failed actress whose own childhood has left many holes in her life, holes that she fills with white wine. She has an addiction, and now she's raising her son alone, and she tries her best to cover up the drinking and provide for him, but a series of misfortune land her in rehab, and she gets separated from Tommy and her dog, who she sees as a second son, and she's determined to get them back. So this is a captivating story of a mother who loses her son and loves him so fiercely, but is just struggling with this addiction and this disease. But it's a love story at this center, and the author took so much care with Sonia and showed her recovery process, and you cheer for her and her wins, and you anger at her losses. And it is an American debut for Lisa. She has a book before this. We had her on Door to Door, and I encourage you to check it out, but also the audiobook, which she reads, she's an actor herself, just received a starred book list review. So go check that out. You can get it on Edelweiss and NetGalley for the advanced listener copy. So next is Walhalla by Nikki May. This is a debut novel from Nigerian British author Nikki, inspired by a long lunch with friends. She wrote the first part of Walhalla and kind of left it, and then it kept going back to her. They kept giving her a lot of trouble, which is what Walhalla means. And she returned to it, and now it's due to be turned into a major TV series. It follows 3 friends, one dating a man she thinks is the one, another one has imposter syndrome, another one's just unfulfilled by her great life. And now a charismatic 4th joins the group, and they think that she brings the best out of them, but the secrets come and friendships start to crack. It's a brilliant new voice about the realities of female friendship and all the stories and white lies that go with it. And it's got a good twist, smart, pure fun to read, great for book clubs, and there's a wonderful behind the book. Please check it out on Edelweiss. Next is Scoundrel by Sarah Wyman. We love Sarah, and true crime lovers are here for Sarah's work. She's a staple in any true crime collection, and she's the author of The Real Lolita and editor of Unspeakable Acts. She also writes a crime column for the New York Times Book Review. In this book, it tells the story of in the 1960s when Edgar Smith is in prison, sentenced to death for a murder of a teenage girl, Victoria Zelinsky, struck up correspondence with William F. Buckley, the founder of the National Review. He refused to think that Edgar Smith, who supported the neoconservative movement, could have committed this heinous crime, and he began to advocate for him, not only for his sentence to be overturned, for his life to be spared, but his sentence to be overturned. It's a really bizarre tale of mid-century America, and it's perfect. The perfect person to tell this is Sarah. She leads us through the twists and turns, freedom, book deals, and attempted murder again, and it's just about this forgotten part of history, justice and reform, and really looks at our criminal justice system and the cracks within it. The book pays a lot of attention to the people he wronged in his life, especially the women, which are, that's a big deal for true crime lovers. And it might be interesting to know that Sarah actually did talk with Edgar Smith before he passed away, and then she kind of worked backwards to like make all of the story come together with people around him. And it's a new approach to true crime and accessible. She does such a good job of making books accessible with a lot of information. And there are great blurbs in from Abbott Kaler and Gilbert King. And then last, Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This is a debut fantasy inspired by the legend of the Chinese moon goddess Chang'e. And this is a love story, well known by lots of people. Songs written about it. And now Sue has set out to write about this legend she loved as a child. And it also has dragons, so that can't hurt. And growing in the story, there's a young girl growing up on the moon, Xingyin, and she's used to solitude, and she's unaware that she's being hidden from a celestial emperor who exiled her mother for stealing his elixir of immortality. But when her magic starts to flare and existence is discovered, she's forced to flee her home, leaving her mother behind. And she's untrained and afraid and has to go through all of this land of wonder and secrets to save them. A sweeping adventure. There's potential YA crossover. It is a standalone, but there's a second one coming fall of 22, and it may open you up to some more ancient tales that you didn't know about. So we're very excited about this one. So going to be a big book on our Voyager list. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tucker Stone from Ingram Publisher Services, and I'm going to talk pretty quickly here about some celebrities. I figured I'd have a focus for this one, and why not have it be celebrities since I didn't have enough Halloween books. You can go to the next slide. First one up is You've Got Red on You from Clark Collis. Clark Collis writes for Entertainment Weekly. You've Got Red on You, How Shaun of the Dead Was Brought to Life. This is a book all about the infamous Shaun of the Dead movie. It's not just your classic, like, here's all this crazy trivia about how he made this, but it's also one of those incredibly important books if you're somebody who's trying to make the jump from I wrote a screenplay on my computer and now I want to make an indie movie. This is the kind of background of how Edgar Wright went from being a guy making a TV show to making one of the most influential movies of all time, and is now getting ready to drop another major release pretty soon. Obviously, Edgar Wright is involved with the book, so is Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, all of your boys from the movie, but you also get to hear from Gillian Anderson herself, who turns out she's a Shaun of the Dead mega fan, and Chris Martin from Coldplay. Chris, obviously in the news this week for singing a Spice Girls song with Mel C. There's no connection to the book, but I just thought that was an interesting piece of trivia. You can go to the next slide and see a couple of images from the book. Look at that, fantastic. Go to the next one. Next one is King of the Blues by Daniel DeVise. This is the rise and reign of B.B. King. You can see 3 of the 4-star reviews it's gotten so far. I thought this was a pretty good quote. No one worked harder than B.B. King. No one inspired more up-and-coming artist. No one did more to spread the gospel of the blues. That's President Barack Obama. This is going to be one of those major official like biographies of a musician. You're going to put it alongside like Last Train to Memphis and Careless Love for Elvis Presley, or Eric Clapton's autobiography. If you want to know about one of the most active and literally can actually back it up with numbers, hardest working man in the music business, B.B. King, this is going to be the book for that. It's from Grove, and it just started shipping a few weeks ago. You can go to the next one. This is Abolition for the People, edited by Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick obviously doesn't need much of an introduction. This is Kaepernick Publishing. This is a collection of essays that deal with the concept of the movement for a future without policing and prison. So obviously there's another world that's possible, a world that grapples with the systemic racism and violence towards people of color. But how do we get there? And how do we move from just talking about it and arguing about it to actually visualizing and experiencing it? And how do we deal with people who claim that it doesn't exist? Beyond Kaepernick's work, you're going to have contributors like Angela Davis, Muaya Abu-Jamal, Kimberly Crenshaw, Miriam Kaba, Dylan Rodriguez, Andrea Ritchie. It's over 30 essays that deal with both the horrors of the current world we live in, but also how we can map a forward momentum, a better place to be. And it's also a way to keep it organized around somebody who actually is doing the work right now. And that one is also shipping right now. You can go to the last one. Officially, guys who don't need an introduction, that's the Beatles. And the author of the book is the Beatles. They got Peter Jackson to do the forward. The reason for that is because, as you probably know, if you have Disney Plus, at the end of November around Thanksgiving, a gigantic 6-hour Peter Jackson directed documentary is coming out. And this is the book that corresponds to that. It's the story of the recording of Let It Be, the understanding of Golda. They're a band. They're not around anymore, but they're still rocking and rolling. I see the chat. I can see you there. This is the book that uncovers the real narrative behind the kind of traditional understanding of what happened with the Beatles, which is they got together to make their last album. They all hated each other. They made a great album and they said goodbye. This is a story that actually lets them describe that actual history, which has always been kind of dismissed as one that's just kind of a simple binary, it was a bad day. And this is much more than that. You can go on to the next slide and see. These are some of the uncovered images. There's all kinds of images here taken by the Beatles, taken by the Beatles family member, taken by people who were recording that day, and there's even more. Go to the next one. There we go. So yeah, that's these books. Obviously, I hope you enjoy them. I don't have review copies of the Beatles. Last time I talked about the Beatles, everybody emailed me for a review copy. I'm sorry to say I don't have free copies of the gigantic, super expensive Beatles book. I wish that I did. You can go to the last slide. And that's me again. You can get in touch with me if you like. First name, last name at ingramcontent.com can also be used to get in touch with anybody who works at Ingram. So go right ahead and do that. Thanks so much for having me. It's always good to talk to librarians.
Thanks, Tucker. Wow, that's a hell of a lineup to follow. Thank you. And I had no idea that this Beatles documentary was on Disney Plus, so I feel like a bad Disney employee. But learn something new every day. So hi, everyone. I'm Dina Sherman. I'm the School and Library Marketing Director for Disney Publishing Worldwide. And I'm happy to be presenting some titles from our adult imprints, Disney Editions, Hyperion Avenue, and National Geographic. If you didn't know, National Geographic was bought by Disney a couple of years ago. And while they still have a lot of their amazing marketing folks there, I'm helping them out with school and library marketing right now. So next slide, please. We're going to start off with Disney Editions with Walt's Disneyland. This is an immersive guide to the attractions and landmarks that Walt helped create in his original Magic Kingdom. Walt's Disneyland will allow readers to feel like they're walking around the Disneyland attractions and landmarks Walt championed and get to see his original Magic Kingdom through his eyes. Next. Thank you. Jim Cora is literally a Disney legend. He became one in 2005. And if you're not aware, Disney legends are given windows on Main Street at the park. Jim has 4 Main Street windows dedicated to him around the world. Not Just a Walk in the Park is the story of his 40-year career, which began in 1957 as a part-time attraction host. His globe-trotting career will provide readers with insights, anecdotes, and never-shared stories of the development of Disney parks around the world. Next slide, please. So The Women of Walt Disney Imagineering is a collection of first-person accounts from a dozen female Imagineers. And of course, I'm going to sneeze. Nope. Okay. Sorry about that. with a foreword by ABC News. Oh, goodness. Okay, my allergies. Is anyone else having bad allergies today? Okay. So, starting over. Women of Walt Disney Imagineering, written by 12 Imagineers, with a foreword by ABC News chief meteorologist Ginger Z. Now, this captures an era where these dozen women are writing their personal stories from their decades designing and building the Disney worldwide empire of theme parks. Illustrated with their personal drawings and photos, plus additional archival Imagineering images, the book represents a broad swath of Imagineering's creative disciplines during a time of unprecedented expansion. And I did also want to mention, speaking of Ginger Z, that unfortunately, because of some of the supply chain issues that we're all experiencing, her biography, A Little Closer to Home, has moved from fall out to January. Next slide, please. So our Meant to Be series are modern day rom-com retellings of classic stories we know and love. And you may remember that the first book, which was If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy, was a top library reads pick in August. So we were very excited to have the second book coming from the amazing Jasmine Guillory. I'm personally a huge fan. So I will admit, I was hoping that this Beauty and the Beast retelling was going to be a good librarian romance, but it is the next best thing. It's a publishing romance. So we have Isabel, who is an editorial assistant who is sent to go work with a beastly author. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Next slide, please. Okay, moving into National Geographic. Fauci, Expect the Unexpected is a book tied to a major National Geographic documentary, which debuted this fall, that covers the extraordinary 50-year career of Dr. Fauci. Compiled from hours of interviews drawn from the documentary, this inspiring book shares the lessons that have shaped the celebrated doctor's life philosophy, offering an intimate view of one of the world's greatest medical minds, as well as universal advice to live by. Next slide, please. So the additions we've made to the National Geographic Complete Birds of North America makes this guide the most complete and up-to-date guide on the market. For the third edition of this iconic guide, we've expanded the page count to 752 pages and revised text and maps to keep up to date with current ornithology. This edition has also been reorganized to reflect recent discoveries about bird genetics that influence taxonomy and covers every bird one might see in the continental US, from the Aleutian Islands to the Florida Everglades, more than 1,000 species in all. An essential volume for every birder's library. I am not a birder. I know a lot of birders. They're going to lose their minds over this. Next, please. Lost Cities, Ancient Tombs, we take you on a journey of a lifetime to visit 100 of the world's most incredible discoveries. Spanning 6 continents and more than 3 million years of history, the book is organized chronologically, moving from the dawn of humankind up to the discovery of the Titanic to reveal how explorers and archaeologists have uncovered the clues that illuminate our past. Next slide, please. And last up, everyone's favorite Egyptologist, Kara Cooney, is back with The Good Kings, a fascinating tour through the sweep of Egyptian history to explore the lives of 5 ancient pharaohs who ruled Egypt with absolute power, shining a new light on the country's 3,000-year empire and drawing fascinating parallels to today's political science. This is a terrific book for fans of books like Mary Beard's SPQR or Madeline Miller's Circe. And last slide, please. That's it for me. This is all the ways you can reach me. You can find us on social media, and those are our website and catalog. We do put some galleys up on NetGalley. We've just started adding National Geographic to NetGalley, most of which will be Blad's. So those are read nows and you don't even need to be approved, but we will have some National Geographic galleys to add as well. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I am Golda from Norton, and I got a low battery warning on my headphones, so I hope you can hear me. Next slide. So here are some fall highlights. Bewilderment by Richard Powers is the latest Oprah Book Club pick. The Family Row by Joshua Prager has been getting a lot of media attention, and this history of the Roe versus Wade case is even more relevant now. Next slide. And now for the winter titles. The Latinist is a debut psychological thriller by Mark Prince. This was inspired by the Daphne and Apollo myth, and it explores power, ambition, and the intertwining of love and obsession. Tessa Templeton has thrived at Oxford under the tutelage of esteemed classics professor Christopher Eccles, or so she thought. Now that she's looking for a job, nobody wants to hire her. Tessa learns that Chris has sabotaged her career, and she realizes their relationship is not at all what she believed. There is betrayal, stalking, obsession, and many more elements that will make this perfect for your fans of dark academia novels. Next slide. The Family Chao by Lan Samantha Chang is a family saga with a bit of a mystery. The residents of Haven, Wisconsin have dined on the Fine Chao restaurant's delicious Americanized Chinese food for 35 years, happy to ignore any unsavory whispers about the family owners. But when brash, charismatic, and tyrannical patriarch Liu Chao is found dead, presumed murdered, his sons discover that they've drawn the suspicious gaze of the entire town. This was loosely inspired by the brothers Karamazov, and I'll put a link in the chat to the bookless webinar that she did back in June with Mary Roach and Glory Edom. Next slide. The Wind Whistling in the Cranes by Lydia George. This one is for your Elena Ferrante fans. This novel tells the story of the landlords and tenants of a derelict canning factory in southern Portugal. The novel has feuding families, picturesque beaches, whirlwind romance, and a wonderful translation by Margaret Jewel Costa and Annie McDermott. Next slide. Fencing with the King by Diana Abu Jaber. Writer Amani is at loose ends after breaking up with her partner and moving back in with her parents. When her uncle invites the family to Jordan for the king's 60th birthday, she leaps at the chance. While there, she wants to find out more about her mysterious grandmother, who might have also been a writer. Amani encounters more intrigue and family secrets than she ever expected. And some parts of the story were inspired by Diana's own family, including her father, who actually did fence with King Hussein as a boy. Next slide. Go Back to Where You Came From by Wajaha Ali. He was in college when 9/11 happened and found himself becoming an accidental spokesman and ambassador for the ordinary and unthreatening Muslim. Now a middle-aged dad, Ali has become one of the funniest public intellectuals in America. In this memoir, he tackles the dangers of Islamophobia, white supremacy, and chocolate hummus, peppering personal stories with astute insights into national security, immigration, and pop culture. Next slide. Index, A History of Thee by Dennis Duncan. I bet you never thought a history of the index could be so fascinating. This is for all the book nerds out there, and aren't we all? Duncan uncovers how the index has saved heretics from the stake, kept politicians from high office, and made us all into the readers we are today. Next slide. So there is a bunch more to come in the first part of next year, and I'm going to do a longer video for the winter titles that I hope to post on YouTube in November. I'll also post Norton's full Edelweiss catalog in the chat so that you can see all these titles that I had to skip. Next slide. And here's my contact information again. Please email me with any questions. I'm doing all of my print ARC giveaways through the library newsletter. So I'll post the sign up link for that in the chat also. And thank you again for listening. Thanks to Lainey and Annie and Caitlin for organizing everything. And thank you to all of our librarians for the work you've been doing in your communities.
Hi, this is Sharon Shell, and I am the Director of Academic Library and Education Sales at IPG, Independent Publishers Group, and I'm excited to share some titles with you. So next slide. The first title we've got is Come As You Are, a novel by Jennifer Haupt, and this is the first of several top shelf titles for IPG that I'm going to be showing you for spring 2022. This is by Central Avenue Publishing. And this is Jennifer Haupt's sophomore novel. She is also the editor of the successful charity collection Alone Together, put together during the pandemic. And this title combines the pop culture savvy of High Fidelity and the family drama psychological intrigue of The Nest and Little Fires Everywhere. Zane and Sky are two misfit teens drawn together by their love of music and their loneliness, both part of Seattle's grunge scene in the early 90s. They dream of moving to LA together, Zane's music career following the trajectory of Kurt Cobain and Eddie Vedder, and Sky drawing Picasso-esque portraits on the Venice Beach boardwalk. When tragedy violently catapults them from best friends to lovers, their bond is forever strengthened and their relationship destroyed. 10 years later, they must come together as parents, putting aside abandoned dreams and broken promises. Their question is, can they face the truth of who they are and become the parents that their daughter needs them to be? Next slide. The next title is called Overdue, Reckoning with the Public Library. It's by Amanda Oliver. This is brought by Chicago Review Press. This is part memoir and part journalist deep dive. Overdue chronicles the current state of the American Public Library, revealing grave inequities within the very apparatus that is meant and is assumed to lift people up across the country. Who are libraries for? How have they evolved, and why do they fill so many roles in our society today? Based on firsthand experiences from 6 years of professional work as a public librarian in high poverty neighborhoods of Washington, D.C., as well as interviews and research, Overdue begins with Oliver's first day at an unusual branch, Northwest 1. Using her experience at this branch allows Oliver to highlight the national problems that have existed in libraries since they were founded: racism, segregation, and class inequalities. These age-old problems have evolved into police violence, the opioid epidemic, rampant houselessness, and lack of mental health care nationwide, all of which come to a head in public library spaces. Can public librarians continue to play the many roles they are tasked with? Can American society sustain one of the most noble institutions? This title, Overdue, will change the way you think about libraries forever. Next slide. The next title, The Bucharest Dossier, is by William Maz, and he is a new talent to the espionage thriller genre. He is a debut author, but the author has also lived in Romania, travels frequently to Bucharest, speaks the language, and is an expert in the culture both during and the post-Soviet era. Bill Heflin is a man apart from life, apart from his homeland, apart from love. At the start of the 1989 uprising in Romania, CIA analyst Bill Heflin, a disillusioned Romanian expatriate, arrives in Bucharest at the insistence of his KGB asset, codenamed Boris. As Heflin becomes embroiled in an uprising that turns into a brutal revolution, nothing is as it seems. With the bloody events unfolding at blinding speed, Heflin realizes that the revolution is manipulated by outside forces, including his own CIA and Boris. This is The Bourne Identity meets John le Carré's The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Next slide. The next title, Letters to Change the World, from Emmeline Pankhurst to Martin Luther King. It's by Travis Elborough. This is a powerful collection of more than 60 of the most politically and socially inspiring letters that have changed the world and the way we see it. This is in an era where our liberties are often under threat. Letters to Change the World sends reminders from history that standing up for and voicing our personal and political beliefs is not merely a human right, but our duty if we want to make change happen. Featuring Emmeline Pankhurst rallying her suffragettes, George Orwell's warning against totalitarianism, Martin Luther King's letters from a Birmingham jail, Time's Up, condemning abuses of power, and much more, this collection will inspire you to stand up and speak up now for what really, really matters. And lastly, our last title is Embrace the Work, Love Your Career, a guided workbook for realizing your career goals with clarity, intention, and confidence by Fran Hauser, published by the Collective Book Studio. Fran Hauser is a best-selling author of The Myth of the Nice Girl, follows up with a workbook for women who want to get more out of their careers. Embrace the Work, Love Your Career combines accessible advice, time-tested strategies, creative prompts, and thoughtful exercises into one holistic resource. Each chapter starts with practical advice and includes prompts and exercises to help readers create their own personal career action plans. Through simple, inspiring, and actionable tools, Embrace the Work, Love Your Career teaches women to be empowered, to focus on the things that really, truly matter, set boundaries, and ultimately realize their full potential. And lots of publicity going with this as well. So I just want to thank you for tuning in and listening to my titles. And there on that last slide there, you can see we have all of our goodies there on the IPG website and truly accessible to anything you need. So thanks again for all you do.
Hello, I'm Melissa Nicholas of the Library Marketing team at Hachette. I'm going to explore fiction titles from our Winter 22 list and then move on to nonfiction. And Lainey, next slide. Thank you for all you're doing, Lainey. Okay, Noah Hawley's new novel is an adventure that finds unquestionable light in dark corners. We've got very vivid characters and a plot as fast and bright as pop cinema, blend stories that are like a Grimm's fairy tale. Something is happening to the teenagers across America, and a band of unlikely heroes sets out on a quest to save one innocent life. Printed galleys are available. Next slide, please. Nobody's Magic is written by poet Destiny Birdsong, and it has a distinctive Southern sensibility in its lush descriptions of the people, landscape, and language. It's set in Shreveport, where Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas meet. This novel is a fresh and authentic portrait of the New South. We're at a crossroads geographically and emotionally for our characters in the book. It's for readers of the award-winning The Secret Lives of Church Ladies. Next slide. Kelly Garrett is not only one of the few Black voices in the crime world, but an absolute rising star. This mystery is set in the Bronx, and another time we can talk about how much I just love this setting. For now, know that Garrett's a fantastically fun, snarky writer with a gift for creating juicy drama and well-plotted twists and turns. She's delivering a fresh take on the psych suspense category in the footsteps of Alyssa Cole and Rachel Housel Hall. Next slide. This is the novel of my heart on the list. A moving debut novel about war, migration, and the power of telling stories. Peach Blossom Spring follows 3 generations of a Chinese family on their search for a place to call home. This compelling portrait of China through the 20th century shines a much-needed light on the silent generation, the wave of Chinese immigrants who came to America in the wake of World War II. Wonderfully strong female characters are one of the many strengths of this powerful historical novel. Next slide. A debut from a stunning talent, Post-Traumatic is a new kind of survivor narrative, featuring a complex heroine who is blazingly, indelibly alive. With razor-sharp prose and mordant wit, Chantel V. Johnson performs an extraordinary feat, delivering a psychologically astute story about the aftermath of trauma and somehow manages to brim with warmth, laughter, and hope. Next slide. Yes, Abby Jimenez is back. After a wild bet, grilled cheese sandwich, cuddles with a baby goat, Alexis Montgomery has her world turned upside down. The cause, Daniel Grant, a ridiculously hot carpenter who's 10 years younger, and yet their chemistry is undeniable. Part of Your World will contain a robust reading guide, an author Q&A, and recipes. Next slide. Kai K. With an immersive and compelling voice, this novel tells the story of an overlooked girl who transforms herself into a powerful queen, exploring motherhood and magic through a feminist lens, making it a perfect fit in the current market of mythological retellings, based on the Hindu epic Ramayana. For fans of women-centered historical fiction, heard Madeline Miller mentioned a few times today, but yes, Cersei fans will love. Next slide. Oh, we're transitioning to nonfiction now. In admissions, Kendra looks back at the 3 years she spent at Taft, a boarding school in the Northeast. Through this lens, she deconstructs the lies and half-truths she herself would later tell as an admissions professional, in addition to myths about boarding schools perpetuated by popular culture. Next slide. Please, Miss. Grace Lavery is a radically different voice, laugh out loud, daring, irreverent, and self-consciously clever. Carmen Maria Machado calls Please Miss hilarious and sexy and terrifying in its brilliance. An avalanche will be glad to be buried under. Next slide. It was vulgar and it was beautiful. Jack Lowry offers a complex, moving portrait of a group that expressed through art the profound trauma of surviving the AIDS crisis and formed essential solidarities within the activist community. It just seems very prescient for these times that we're still in. Okay, next slide. Delia Ephron is a best-selling author, screenwriter, essayist, and more. Her play Love, Loss, and What I Wore, written with her sister Nora Ephron based on the play by Eileen Beckerman, ran for 2 years off Broadway. Remember Broadway, you guys? Theater? It's exciting. It's coming back. Anyway, her memoir, Left on 10th, proposes to straddle several memoir categories, including grief, death of a spouse, cancer, surviving cancer, and finding new love after a tragedy. It's rare to read about such heavy topics with a joyful touch, but Ephron has written an uplifting and inspiring account. Next slide. It's like a workbook that goes with Left on 10th. The Modern Loss Handbook is a workbook for the long arc of grief and all its messiness, melancholy, and dark clarity. There's prompts, creative projects, rituals, and resources. Next slide, please. Yes, this cat, James Patterson, is writing a book with Dolly Parton, and there's going to be music, and Dolly's like very into it, and she talked to us, and it was very exciting. I had goosebumps. Next slide, please. Check out this very cool GCP Author Fall Forum. It's going to be a lot of fun hour. Most fun you're going to have in November for an hour. Next slide. I'm including Thanksgiving. Thank you. Thanks for all the help today. Reach out for galleys. Okay, on to the next presenter. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew, and I'm here today to introduce a bunch of upcoming adult titles from Tor that we are so excited about. Starting with the next slide, please. There's a bad moon rising or falling, you'll see. He's sold in over 40 countries and top charts the world over. That's right, #1 New York Times bestselling thriller master James Rollins debuts a major new fantasy series with The Starless Crown. A riven world trapped between fire and ice approaches cataclysm. A gifted student foresees the coming apocalypse and is hunted for her vision. She falls in with a gang of weary outcasts who must survive their world as they save it. James Rollins wants you to know that this is the story he's always wanted to tell. It's a love letter to the wild nature that he loves and the thrilling action that has become his trademark. Prepare for alien climes, ancient mysteries, bat people, which I love, and a moon that's coming down and gonna take the whole world with it. So yes, fight the moon. R.A. Salvatore says, when I'm sitting around the campfire, hearing of heroic deeds, I want James Rollins to be standing across from me, spinning the yarn. The Starless Crown releases January 4th. Next slide, please. It's a thrilling, evocative, twisty, and a little lusty dark academia contemporary fantasy. And with 10+ million views on the hashtag, you've probably heard about Olivia Blake's sensational The Atlas Six from TikTok. But I'm here right now to confirm that this is one of the most exciting books I've ever read. It's almost the end of 2021, and I've all but lost my ability to focus, but I opened this book on Sunday, October 24th, and basically didn't stop reading until I finished on Monday. I can't stop thinking about it. So here's the premise. 6 extraordinarily gifted magic users are handpicked for initiation into a society that safeguards the hidden and apocalyptic knowledge thought lost with the burning of the Library of Alexandria. They research and manipulate the forces that govern the cosmos while fending off assassins, dangerous, and each other, even more dangerous, because make no mistake, this is a competition where there are winners and losers. Not everyone can get initiated. The Atlas Six releases on March 1st. Next slide, please. When Redwood and Wildfire by Andrea Hairston first released in 2011 from Aqueduct Press, it won the 2011 Otherwise and Carl Brandon Kindred Award. 10 years later, Tor.com is re-releasing Redwood and Wildfire for a wider audience to experience the beauty and power of Andrea Hairston's writing. Redwood and Wildfire is a story of 2 vaudeville performers / hoodoo conjurers traveling across the turn of the 20th United States in search of a place where they will be free to live the lives they choose. This journey will take them from haunted Georgia swampland all the way to City of the Future, Chicago, and it's the most gorgeous, heartbreaking storytelling you can find. Really, you'll close this book a different person than you opened it. Hairston's prose is raw and poignant. Medicine for a Broken World, Daniel Jose Older called her last novel Master of Poisons. Redwood and Wildfire is available from Tor.com February 1st. Next slide, please. Tochi Onyebuchi is a superstar of young adult fiction, Beast Made of Night, War Girls, and master of the speculative novella, Riot Baby. Now the Hugo, Nebula, Locus, and NAACP Image Award finalist, plus ALA, Alex, and New England Book Award winning author arrives with his adult novel debut, Goliath. This primal biblical science fiction epic shows us an Earth that has begun to empty. The privileged and powerful leave our stranded rock for luxury among the stars and extract as much as they can when they go. Goliath weaves together the tales of this cannibalized and disparate world into a richly urgent mosaic about race, class, gentrification, and who is allowed to be the hero of any history. Leigh Bardugo said Onyebuchi sets fire to the boundary between fiction and reality. So that's definitely something to witness. Goliath releases on January 25th. Next slide, please. New York Times best-selling author and three-time Edgar Award winner T. Jefferson Parker has a new beguiling thriller, 1,000 Steps. Laguna Beach, California, 1968. It is the age of Aquarius, baby. Timothy Leary is a rock star and LSD is God. People head to the beach seeking peace, love, and entitlement. 16-year-old Matt Anthony is seeking only his missing sister. He's got a stoner mom, a deadbeat no-show dad, a brother fighting in Nam, and no help from the cops who hate hippies and think Matt's sister is just another summer of love runaway, even after a second body is discovered. 1,000 Steps releases January 11th. Next slide, please. And thank you so much for your time. Y'all rock. Follow us on all the socials for cool book news, and please feel free to reach out to me if you see something you like. My email is there, andrew.king@tor.com. We're happy to distribute physical ARCs as available and send e-galleys via NetGalley and Edelweiss as well. Take it away, Alexa. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. That was awesome. Hard to follow, but I will try. So hi, everyone. I'm Alexa Waco from Soho Press, and we can actually jump right into the next slide, Lainey. Happy spooky season to everyone. I'm going to talk about a couple titles, mostly crime titles from our imprint Soho Crime, but first up is an adult literary title, Blue Skin Gods by S.J. Sindhu. You might be familiar with S.J. Sindhu if you're familiar with the novel Marriage of a Thousand Lies, which won a lot of awards. I'm not going to list them all here, but it was a finalist for the Lambda Literary Award, as well as an ALA Stonewall Honor Book. This one, Blue Skin Gods, is a groundbreaking novel about faith, identity, and also finding one's path in life, specifically in a coming of age sense. And I just want to give a quick shout out to the fact that it's a great book club pick, and I think you'll see why when I tell you what it's about. So this is the story of a boy, Kalki, who is born with blue skin in Tamil Nadu, India, who is raised and has been raised to believe that he is the reincarnation of the Hindu god Vishnu and that he can perform miracles. When he is 10 years old, though, his aunt falls ill and his powers fail him, and he begins to kind of unravel the truth that he has been brought up in this lie, specifically by his father, who is somewhat overbearing. And basically his father has been cashing in, swindling millions of people. And that, you know, as his fame grows, that is really kind of the level of fame that we're talking about. So this book is kind of told in a memoir-esque format. It follows Kalki from when he is 10 to his early 20s as he is unraveling this truth. It is not like one huge revelatory moment, but it is really a moving, impactful story over the course of his adolescence about what it means to be in his position and what it means to have been raised, how he has been raised, and really a book of self-discovery. As a young man, he finally travels from the ashram in India to the US, where he plays in a band, Blue Skin Gods, and attempts to come to terms again with his true identity and find his place in the world. And I can't tell you kind of the last thing he finds out because of spoilers, but it is actually, again, kind of a metaphorical thing, and then also a very literal thing about kind of the circumstances of his birth. So S.J. Sindhu is incredible at writing stories of identity and self-discovery, especially when it comes to complex questions of faith, nationality, and also queerness, spaces that Kalki navigates while figuring out who he is. So lastly, I just want to end kind of with the words of Roxane Gay about this book. The richness of the story will take hold of you and never let go. So that is Blue Skin Gods, and we can move on to the next slide. Next up, kind of a hard turn, but an awesome one, Jane in the Year Without Summer. This one sells itself kind of on its premise alone, which is Jane Austen turns sleuth. So some of you might be familiar with the series already. It is a longer running series by Stephanie Barron, who also writes under Francine Matthews. And so if you are a Jane Austen fan and or a mystery fan, even if you haven't heard of it, it definitely, you can jump right into this one. You might have kind of, I think the best known book so far in the series is Jane and the 12 Days of Christmas, which was kind of a smash hit for Soho Crime. The premise may seem a little rompy, but while it absolutely embraces kind of the caustic wit that defined Jane Austen's work, anyone who's read this series will know that it distinguishes itself for its impeccably researched plots and historical detail of Jane Austen's life. They've been poured over before but Stephanie/Francine does it in a really novel and smart and also empathetic way. So again, no matter how big of a Jane Austen fan you are, you will learn something. You will kind of get inside of her life in a way that you have not before. This one does take a slightly darker turn than the previous mysteries because we are approaching the end of Jane's life. It's May 1816. Jane is feeling unwell, and she attributes her poor health to the stress of family burdens. So along with her sister, she used her proceeds of her latest manuscript about a baronet's daughter nursing a broken heart for a daring naval captain to travel to the spa. However, while she is at the spa, she discovers some kind of shady things happening at the spa and discovers that the boarders there may have stresses of their own. And she decides to intervene before anything or a murder or a death comes to pass, which again, no spoilers, but you know, there's enough crime in this book to satisfy crime fans. Also an interesting historical moment before I move on is that the title originates from the fact that this is the year without summer, when the eruption of Mount Tambora caused a volcanic winter that shrouded the entire planet for 16 months. So that is an historical fact. And also kind of, it does have some parallels in the terms of like world catastrophe that I think we're dealing with now that do resonate. So again, there's much more to say about this one, but if you're interested in Jane Austen turning sleuth, please check out this book by Stephanie Barron. Next up, another crime title. Some of you may have seen Eli Craner present this title. This is a debut novel, and fun fact, this is the winner of our first annual Peter Lovesey first novel crime contest at Soho Crime. So we are really excited to be launching Eli's career. He is an author that is surely going to be around for a long time, and this book is best described, as Friday Night Lights meets Southern Gothic. Of course, I've already blown through my time, so I'm just going to leave you with that. Can you just advance really quickly to the next slide, Lainey? Sorry. Really quickly, I do want to put a quick plug in for Cara Black's 20th Amy LeDuc mystery. Again, that's 20th in the series. So Cara Black fans, I don't need to pitch it to you because you already know her, but please know that that is on the horizon in the spring. And thank you guys so much. Sorry for taking up too much of my time, Lainey. You can reach me here and I'll drop my email in the chat too. Next up, we have other press, I believe.
So let's go with the first slide. So the anomaly, I was just saying, since we all know that there have been a little problem with the connection, is very much within the tone and the spirit of this book, which is, where dystopia is becoming so much our reality that this book is going to feel normal to you after everything we went through for the last 2 years. So the anomaly is the story of two planes that leave Paris and land in New York, one in March and one in June. And it sounds there's nothing particular about this since we have a Air France flight literally every day. But in this case, what is particular is that the flight that lands in June is the exact same flight than the one that landed in March, with the very same people in it and the same pilot. And it causes a lot of anxiety because this plane was not planned to land in June. So what happened? So this is exactly the test that Hervé Letellier put on himself, because he's the president of Oulipo in France, and Oulipo for the last 40 years has set challenges to their writers. Like, for example, you can't try to write a novel without using the letter E. So this is something Georges Perec did in the past. So this is exactly the challenge that Hervé Letellier sets himself up to do. But I have a feeling there's something much more interesting than this in what this novel is about. Because what this novel is about is Hervé lives in his time, and of course he watches Netflix. And what this book is an attempt to make Netflix a model for high literature. So imagine you watching a Netflix series where the script has been written by Tolstoy, and more or less you have the idea of what the anomaly is about. So I'm not going to say much more about it. Just know there's a lot about love, about our times, about politics, about corruption, about crime, about homosexuality, about issues in various countries, such as Trump in America, and maybe some Sarkozy and Macron in France. So you have everything you want in it, but it's all organized exactly as a Netflix series. So Hervé is at his best, and we've published Hervé for many, many years, and there are many books of his we have on our shelves that you're going to hear about again. So know that he won the Goncourt, which is not so exciting after all, you know, this is the French thing. But the other thing that's much more interesting is that it sold in 41 countries and it became the #1 bestseller in Germany, which is kind of weird considering this is a book that is French. So there's something not French about it, clearly. And I think it's something that will definitely speaks to America, and America is a major, major character in the book. So this is a big, big deal, and you'll hear about it more and more and more. So we can go on to the next book. Peter Stamm, as you may remember, I mean, since you always hear me blah, blah, blah about Peter Stamm was literally the first author I published 20 years ago. And in the newsletter that I hope you're getting, we republished one of his earliest short stories, which was very, very funny. And reading this after you go back to his early work, you see how a great writer evolves and how what he had in mind when 25 years ago or 20 years ago is now taking a very sophisticated, mature, and adventurous turn, because Peter Stamm is really the anatomist of everyday life and everyday emotion. And in order to make this even more particular or more surrealistic, you find the surrealism in everyday life as very much it is in your own life. But when you read Peter Stamm, you read him, let's say, 5 years ago, you didn't think that things would happen to you the way he described it then. And now when you read Getting Dark, you will feel that he's right on. And again, even though he doesn't mean this as dystopia, there is a quality of dystopia in it, but it's dystopia as we live it today. And his writing, like Hervé, it's outstanding. I mean, Hervé Letellier and Peter Stamm are probably one of the greatest European writers today in terms of their style, the economy, the simplicity, the way they contain their emotion, the way they choose their world. It's minimalist, beautiful, elegant. And when I say Tolstoy, I don't think I'm wrong in terms of what Tolstoy did at the time and what these people are doing today. So next slide, please. Now, Ben Okri, that's a big event for Other Press because we have just acquired a majority of his backlist and his new novel. So now we officially Ben Okri's publisher in America. And this, Every Leaf in Alleluia, is an illustrated book which is devoted to the protection of nature and the power of nature. When you treat nature well, what happens, and when you treat nature badly, what happens. But what is most fascinating in this book, which is of course amazingly well written, I don't need to introduce Ben Okri to you, this Nigerian author who won the Booker Prize many years ago and who reinvents things in a certain way. I would say that Ben Okri is very much a prophet. He's a man who understands human nature like I've never seen before. And he also has a way of inventing stories that forces us to put us in very complicated place. I mean, he really pushes the limits of our imagination and our understanding. But at the same time, he writes beautiful and tells wonderful stories. This one is particularly, I would say, closer to something familiar and easy to understand. But what is crucial in this book is that he shows how childhood, as he described it, is not childhood as we understand it. The little girl, who is the heroine of the book, has a maturity, an intelligence, and I would say, a capacity to understand things that you don't usually attribute to children. So this is why I think this book is radical. There was a famous French sociologist or anthropologist, Philippe Arias, who says that childhood is an invention of the late 19th century in Europe. Well, it's certainly not the way we understand childhood, the way this young girl is behaving. So it's marvelous. And it's both for adult and children. I would say it's first for adults because it's so profound, the story, but also children will adore it. Especially I can imagine the joy of a parent reading that book to their child. We can move to the next after you see the beautiful design. Now, are we good with Bad Girls? All right, let's stick to, I think you got the idea, Ben. Now, Bad Girls is a very, very radical book. You know, all my books always have something counterintuitive in them. I mean, with Hervé, you saw what it was, with Peter and with Ben. Now, Bad Girls, Camila is an Argentinian woman who was a man and who became a woman, as you can see. And she has an understanding of the process of changing sex and also of what it means to become a prostitute in a park with a community of other prostitutes, mainly homosexuals or trans, who explain the political power of what that means. So I would say that she almost has a Marxist reading of the forces that are included in the decision of becoming trans, which is very different from the way we understand it in America. It's a beautifully well-written book. It's a very powerful novel. It's her story. It's definitely her story. I would say it's autofiction 101, and it's very powerful, and it's going to make a lot of noise because it is not the way we see things, the way she explains it. And it's going to be very, very interesting. And she's a woman with incredible heart and intelligence, and she writes beautifully. So all these books are shining with their style, with their intelligence, their originality, and all of them touches on issues that are very much of our time, especially the notion that dystopia is no longer dystopia, but it's really what we are doing now. So thank you very, very much. And I really hope you enjoy my books. And I'm sorry I was not always as clear as I would have wanted to be, but I don't like to read. I like to see what my mind is dictating me on the moment. So thank you, and hope to see you all soon.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for sticking to nearly the very end here. I won't be able to send out physical galleys of the following titles, but they're all available to be downloaded on NetGalley and Edelweiss digitally. So first up, we have No Land to Light On by Yara Zabe. If you attended Library Journal's Day of Dialogue last month, you might have seen Yara participate in the Consequences of Conflict panel. And if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. I think it's still available for another few weeks. This breathtaking and evocative novel follows a young Syrian couple in the throes of new love on the cusp of their bright future when a travel ban rips them apart on the eve of their son's birth. Achingly intimate, yet poignantly universal, No Land to Light On is the story of a family caught up in forces beyond their control, fighting for the freedom and home that they found in one another. This is for readers of Exit West and An American Marriage, and it publishes on January 4th. Next. In a starter review, Kirkus called Catherine Faulkner's Greenwich Park a suspenseful thriller with constantly growing levels of menace. This tension-filled novel will keep you guessing through its final revelations. Helen has an idyllic life. She has a handsome architect husband, a gorgeous Victorian house in the illustrious Greenwich Park neighborhood, and a baby on the way. But that life begins to change when she attends her first prenatal class and meets Rachel, an unpredictable mother-to-be. Fun Rachel is just what lonely Helen needs, however. But when Rachel's increasingly erratic behavior is more and more unsettling, and Helen, her friends, and her family begin to suspect that her strange new friend may be linked to their shared history in unexpected ways. When Rachel threatens to expose a past crime that could destroy all of their lives, it becomes clear that there are more than a few secrets laying beneath the broadleaf trees and warm lamplight of Greenwich Park. This is for readers of The Wife Upstairs and Never Have I Ever. Greenwich Park publishes on January 4th. Next. Mouth to Mouth by Antoine Wilson is a mouthful of literary intrigue, and at 192 pages, I'm not kidding, it's pretty quick. It opens up in an airport lounge. In said lounge, our narrator listens as Jeff Cook, a former classmate that he only vaguely remembers, shares the uncanny story of his adult life, a life that changed courses years before when he resuscitated a drowning man. Upon discovering that the man is a renowned art dealer named Francis Arsenal, Jeff secretly begins to visit his Beverly Hills art gallery. Although Francis doesn't seem to recognize Jeff as the man who saved his life, he nevertheless casts his legendary eye and sees something worthy in him. The paths of the two men come together and diverge in dizzying ways until the novel's staggering ending. Called Sleek, Swift, and Graceful by Fates and Furies author Lauren Groff, Mouth to Mouth masterfully exposes the myriad of ways we deceive each other and ourselves. For readers of Milk Fed and Kudos, Mouth to Mouth publishes on January 11th. Next, we have State Change and Anxiety Beat Burnout and Ignite a New Baseline of Energy and Flow by Robin Berzin. This outlines a 30-day program for reaching a new level of energy, clarity, and calm based on a paradigm-shifting idea that you have to change your body to change your mind and mood. Too often, conventional medicine treats the body as separate from the mind, ignoring physical issues like chronic illness. Science shows that those issues are oftentimes intricately entwined with mood issues like depression, anxiety, stress, and persistent fatigue. This trailblazing book explores the new science of optimizing the body in ways that will help anyone attain a new baseline for energy, calm, and optimism. For readers of Keep Sharp and Burnout, State Change publishes January 18th. Before she was known to America as a CNN senior legal analyst, Laura Coates was once a federal prosecutor working at the Department of Justice. During her time there, she began to realize that she was working for a system that so often didn't work for her, as a woman, as a mother, and as someone who is Black. Through brutal and revelatory courtroom experiences, Coates takes readers through her increasingly growing disillusionment with the justice system. Necessary, engrossing, and deeply moving, Just Pursuit dives deeply into the idealism versus the reality of America's legal system. Laura was also participated in Day of Dialogue, so you can go and check out her panel as well. This is for readers of State of Emergency and the New Jim Crow and publishes on January 18th. The last title is Under Money by Jay Newman. A group of American patriots are looking for a way to get their number one choice, Senator Ben Corn, elected president. Corn is the perfect candidate, except for the secrets he harbors that could threaten everything. The group's goal is to implement their own foreign policy and fundamentally restructure American society. No big deal. Essential to this scheme is Greta Webb, a CIA agent who is an expert on how global dark money flows. To achieve their goals, this group forms dangerous alliances, one of whom has his eyes on Greta. And while she would be wise to avoid him at all costs, she can't. Journeying across the globe, the group of Americans become enmeshed in this underground world. And as they discover the secret of the dark money's pool success, which involves manipulating the markets to rake in billions of dollars, they come into ever-increasing danger. Under Money offers a savage look at the secret lives of the world's richest people. For fans of The Devil's Hand and Enemy of the State, Under Money publishes on January 25th. Before I let you go, I wanted to quickly remind you of SNS's resources for librarians. We have the Book Drop, which contains more book recommendations, info about our virtual events, and more. Our Book Club's Favorites program has all of the resources you need for your book clubs, including readers' guides, info about how you can get authors to your book clubs, and more. And lastly, there's our Books Like Us program, Simon & Schuster's company-wide program, which features powerful stories and diverse voices. I will drop the links to all of these in the chat. Next. Thank you for attending. If you want to hear more about SNS's upcoming titles, we're having a longer presentation, our seasonal librarian preview on November 9th, and I will drop the RSVP link to that in the chat as well. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ellen Whitaker, and I will be presenting for Bloomsbury today. I'm presenting a few upcoming titles, and all are available for download on either NetGalley or Edelweiss or both, and it is indicated on each slide. But if you'd like to request physical galleys, please email me directly at ellen.whitaker@bloomsbury.com. So let's get started. So first up is Catch a Sparrow. This is perfect for fans of HBO's Murder on Middle Beach, readers of Michelle McNamara's I'll Be Gone in the Dark, and those who love a good true crime podcast. Catch a Sparrow is a gripping story of a woman brilliantly investigating her stepsister's murder, which has been unsolved for over 2 decades. Growing up, the author, Rachel Rear, knew the story of Stephanie Kapunski's disappearance. Stephanie was at the height of her life in a relationship with a man she hoped to marry and close to her students and her family. And then one morning, she was gone. Rachel writes a compulsively readable and poignant reconstruction of the case's dark and serpentine path across more than 2 decades. Startling, unputdownable, and deeply moving, Catch a Sparrow is a retelling of a crime like no other. Next slide. Cleopatra and Frankenstein. This one is perfect for fans of sweet, bitter, modern lovers and conversations with friends. Cleopatra and Frankenstein is an addictive, humorous, and poignant debut novel about the shockwaves caused by one couple's impulsive Each compulsively readable chapter explores the lives of the couple, Cleo and Frank, and an unforgettable cast of their closest friends and family as they grow up and grow older. Whether it's Cleo's best friend struggling to embrace his genderqueerness, or Frank's financially dependent sister arranging sugar daddy dates to support herself after being cut off, or Cleo and Frank themselves as they discover the trials of marriage and mental illness. Each character is as absorbing and painfully relatable as the last. As hilarious as it is heartbreaking, entertaining as it is deeply moving, Cleopatra and Frankenstein marks the entry of a brilliant and bold new talent. Next slide. The Dark Queens. This one is for fans of Game of Thrones, Hidden Figures, and Mary Queen of Scots. The Dark Queens is the remarkable little-known story of two trailblazing women in the early Middle Ages who wielded immense power only to be vilified for daring to rule. Brynhild was a foreign princess raised to be married off for the sake of alliance building. Her sister-in-law, Fredegonde, started out as a lowly palace slave, and yet in 6th century France, where women were excluded from noble succession and royal politics was a blood sport, these two iron-willed strategists reigned over vast realms, changing the face of Europe. The two queens commanded armies and negotiated with kings and popes. They formed coalitions and broke them, mothered children and lost them. They fought a decades-long civil war against each other. They laid the foundations of what would one day be Charlemagne's empire. Yet, after the queen's deaths, their stories were rewritten, their names consigned to slander and legend. In The Dark Queens, the author resurrects these two very real women in all of their complexity, painting a richly detailed portrait of an unfamiliar time and striking at the roots of some of our culture's stubbornness and myths about female power. Next slide. Last but certainly not least, The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. This beautiful book actually publishes next week, and we're so excited about it that we wanted to bring it up today. It's by the Booker shortlisted author of 10 Minutes, 38 Seconds in This Strange World. Two teenagers, a Greek Cypriot and a Turkish Cypriot, meet at a taverna on the island they both call home. Hidden beneath garlands of garlic, chili peppers, and creepy honeysuckle, the two teens grow in their forbidden love for each other. A fig tree bears witness to their hushed, happy meetings and eventually to their silent, secret departures. The tree is there when war breaks out, when the capital is reduced to ashes and rubble, and then when the teenagers vanish. Decades later, one of them returns. He is a botanist looking for a native species, but really he's searching for lost love. This is Elif Shafak's best work yet. Next slide. Again, please feel free to email me directly at ellenwhitaker@bloomsbury.com to request any physical galleys. Thank you so much for your support. And that is it for me.
And that is it from all of us. Thank you so much. Take care.